So everything started when I got this as a gift, the Whoop. Now this is a very controversial piece of hardware because it's a subscription model. Subscription means you pay to use the device, you don't own it. So you expect that every time there is an update coming out, you will get the update, right? Well, that's exactly what did not happen with Whoop. They launched a new version and they say you either pay for it or you have to get another year of subscription if you want it. And this curious case came very close with what happened with the Arc browser. Was a new concept of browser with vertical tabs that completely changed the way you view browsers for hundreds of thousands of users. And I loved it. And then what happens? They just decide to discontinue it because the company wants to focus on an AI browser. Really, man? Anyway, I just lost any sponsorship hope with this company, so if you want to leave a like to support me, I would really appreciate that. This was really a wake-up call moment for me. It's like we rent software like we rent movies, but those software actually owns our workflows, our data, our wallets, our time that we invested to learn those tools. So it's time we really take back control. And being the control freak that I am, I developed a system, a checklist that I personally use every time that I either need to change an app or to get one because I need something new. And in this video, that is exactly what I'm going to share. The first point I want to touch here, it's probably the most important, is the everything free mentality. Like, I would never pay for an app. That is something that I heard a lot, and I used to think about this in the past. I've been an Android user for many, many years, so I'm used to everything being free. But in this specific case, like, if you really want to apply like critical thinking and you want to do the best market analysis for every app available, let's say that, you can't just go for, I want a free app, like 100%, because you're probably gonna cut out half of the market, if not more. So how can you make a distinct decision if you do that? But at the same time, once you start paying for your first app, you don't want to make the mistake of start paying for every single app. Like, it's very easy to fall into the other side of the cliff, which is subscription models. And that's what I want to talk about as well. Now, I would say that one-time payment is almost every time better than subscription. And you'll say, yeah, of course that is, but you gotta really understand the cases here. For example, you want to get into content creation and you see that there's softwares that are free for video editing. There's free software. There is Final Cut that is like 350 euros here in Italy. And then there's like Photoshop, which is like a monthly price, like an insane monthly price. Here it's where it gets pretty difficult because most of the time when you have to choose something, you have a one-time payment that is huge and a monthly fee that is low. So it's actually very difficult to compare them. I would say go for the subscription tool only if the tool is way much better. We're talking about 90% better. We're talking about features you can't live without. Also, subscription apps can be good because they offer free trial. They offer, like, you can just use them for a month. Like, if you're in a new niche and you have no idea whether in a month or 2 months you're going to be still interested in that app, you don't want to do the mistake of paying 300, 400 for an application you're never going to use again. So in that sense, it might make sense at the very beginning to use a subscription. Another very important thing that most of the people don't do, like they don't go the extra mile, is to really read the DNA of the company that is behind the app. Now, this is probably something that nobody does, but I'm particularly interested in this because that's kind of my sector. What I do is I investigate the funding, the roadmap, the change log, like how many times do they release updates. I check if they listen into the users. This is probably the most delicate part. I put my hands up because I am part of the industry. I worked in a venture capital fund, but what I see, like the pattern I often see is for venture capital fund companies, which means they have investors, they need to find always the best ways to earn money, and that's completely fine. If you, for example, have a company and you want to use an app as a service, that's completely fine. But here we're talking about individuals, so we're gonna make completely different choices. So in this case, if an app is VC backed, I'll leave you an example like Raycast, the launcher app for iOS. It's amazing. I just love it. I really use it for a lot of things. What they just introduced is the clipboard manager now is only available like in the last 6 months, but this information is stored locally. So I don't see why you should just cut a feature like that only for pro users. This is a sign that, you know, I start to smell a couple of things that may happen in the future. And as a user, I tend to, take the distance a little bit. And when I talk about the roadmap, maybe go on their website and see what are the things that we'll be working on in the future. And if you feel like that's really the way to go, that's when you should go with the app. And when I say about are they listening to the users or not, the key is to go on Reddit. Now, not many people use Reddit, or as far as my circle of people, but in the very specific section of Reddit, this is where there's like the real beta tester for the product. So you can really see if people are complaining because they requested features maybe years ago and they never really implemented it. That might be kind of a red flag, but of course, this is just one tiny detail. And then last but not least, the changelog. So you can just see how many times they do an update. Of course, the more updates they do, the better. But always keep in mind the Lindy effect from Nassim Taleb. The longer a tech survives, the longer is expected to survive. For example, the Arc browser, that was just 3 years, while imagine, for example, for how much time Excel has been around. Last part of this act is plan your escape. Don't fall in love with one single tool. Choose it carefully, especially in today's time, focus on privacy and data export. I'll give you an example. It's way more difficult to take data out of Notion rather than Obsidian, because Obsidian is open source and all the files are actually stored in your computer. This is something that I really started to look carefully. Besides all the evaluation you can do, these are the key principles that I stick to in my system. The first one is every app needs to fight for its life. I don't love any of the app I'm using. It's like Clayton Christensen says, hire a tool for a job. Fire it when it stops performing. I had to include him because he was part of my thesis when I graduated. Another rule is the wait but why rule. For example, in my case, I love trying new apps. It's one of my things, let's say that. So I always try new apps, but at the same time, I never really adapt my workflow to them. I feel like your switching cost needs to be incredibly higher. Like once you invest your time to really learn a tool, it should be really difficult for another app to drag you out and to acquire you as a user. You should be an incredibly picky customer. So every time I want to try a new app, and when it's serious, when it's maybe change is going to happen, I always test it for at least 2 weeks. Stick with me because the end of the framework, I feel like is the most interesting part. Now we're going to talk about the price hacks. Like really try to understand where certain applications, you can find them cheaper, understanding if, the oldest trick in the world, if you cancel subscription, you're probably going to get a deal, maybe a month free, or you're going to get a discount on your next subscription. Understanding the pricing strategies of these companies so you can really make your own decision completely bias free. And last but not least, if you're an app geek and you're looking for applications that can fix a specific problem, go on Reddit. Search for the app. There's specific Reddits in which developers are looking for early adopters and they're willing to give away their tool for free because they really need feedback in order to grow their MVP. Also, one of the most important points that we'll touch in this video is open source. Is a software with source code that is publicly available and anyone can use, modify, and distribute. Translated, free, user-centric, amazing apps. This is a part of the real deep nerdy world. So if you have no idea where to find those apps, I'll leave links to my favorite websites in the first comment. This is truly amazing. For example, when I talked about Arc in the beginning, I found a browser that is trying to emulate that and is completely open source. It's called Zen browser. Last but not least, guess what? In 2025, if you don't find the right tool for you, you can make your own tool using what it's called vibe coding. There's applications like Lovable, Cursor, and many others that allow you to create software from scratch without knowing any single line of code. Of course, this might not be the most stable, but if you're looking for a simple solution to a note-taking app, Lovable can probably build one in 2 minutes. An honorable mention in this digital world is if an application can be solved in an analog way, analyze that way as well. For example, if you're looking for a Pomodoro timer app, you can just buy a physical Pomodoro timer. But even after all this consideration, remember that things are going to happen. The Arc browser can happen. So the most important part is to stay critic and keep an exit plan ready. This was my first video really about tech, but if you want to check my career playlist, I'll leave a link in the description, or you can just click here. Thank you, and I'll see you in the next one.